Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys so much for joining me for today's video. In it, I want to go over what I think is one of the more underrated signings in the NFL. It's a little bit late, but I haven't seen it covered very much, so I wanted to dive a little deeper into it. I want to talk about the Joe Brady signing in Buffalo, but before we get into that, if you are new to the channel, if you haven't done it yet, for whatever reason, if you are enjoying the content, please consider liking and subscribing. Your support is so very appreciated. It helps me out a ton, and I absolutely want to shout out to all of my current subscribers. Thank you guys so much for being with me throughout. I really appreciate your support. With that done and out of the way, let's get into this version of Hot Off the Press. So the question that I want to answer in the video today is, what is the potential impact of Joe Brady becoming that quarterback coach in Buffalo? What can we expect from this offense moving forward with Josh Allen at the helm? And can they be successful as they have been for the last couple seasons? Let's start with taking a deep dive into Joe Brady and his history. He was the offensive coordinator, of course, for the Carolina Panthers for about a season and a half, a little bit more. What did he do in that time? He helped Teddy Bridgewater throw from the most yardage, almost 500 yards more than he had in any other season in his career, and also have the second best QBR finish of his career. Now, this past year, things didn't go exactly as planned, of course. We saw some hiccups in that Carolina offense, especially after Run CMC, Christian McCaffrey went down. It all kind of fell apart to an extent. But was this really his fault? And if it was, how much of it can we actually put on Joe Brady? I think there are a couple things that come into play with the firing. Number one, Matt Rule did him absolutely no favors, especially when we consider how he was flopping back and forth on who the starting quarterback would be and who the quarterback was going to be in game. I have watched a lot of football in my life, and I don't know if I've ever seen the back and forth that I saw from the Carolina Panthers quarterback position this season. When Sam Darnold went out with that injury and Cam Newton was signed and came in, he got the job for one full game. And then after that, PJ Walker was in. In game, they would swap out between PJ Walker doing a series or two and then Cam Newton going back at it. And you don't need to be a genius to know that you are not going to be able to find much success when you cannot even decide on who your quarterback is going to be from drive to drive. So that was a huge detriment to what Joe Brady was trying to do with this offense, and I think we cannot overlook that. The other fact of the matter is that Sam Darnold was basically dropped in his lap, and we've seen 3 seasons of Sam Darnold in New York, and there was not a lot to love about it. Now, what he did with Sam Darnold in those first 4 games of the season for Carolina, and granted that is a small sample size, but it is impressive nonetheless, and I want to look into that because no one could get what we expected or what the Jets expected when they drafted Sam Darnold so high in the first round. No one could pull that out of him. Joe Brady did a pretty good job of doing the best he could with that situation. Through Carolina's first 4 games last year, and this is also before Run CMC went down, which obviously changes the offense significantly, Darnold compiled 1,189 yards, so almost 300 yards a game. He had 10 total touchdowns, and a big caveat and part of that is he also ran for 5 touchdowns. And when we think about Josh Allen and his rushing prowess, if you can get Sam Darnold to run for 5 touchdowns, you probably have a good idea of how to get a quarterback's use out of his legs. He also completed 68% of his passes, high above what his average was in those other 3 seasons. And he had a quarterback rating of 95.5. Pretty darn solid. The best 4-game split in 3 seasons in New York for Sam Darnold. Before that, it was back in 2019. He threw for a little over 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 picks, and just a 61% completion percentage. So that was in 3 seasons, and we saw in the first 4 games with Sam Darnold what Joe Brady was able to do with that very same quarterback. So for Joe Brady to be able to do what he did with Teddy Bridgewater and Sam Darnold, I think that's fairly impressive, especially when you consider that one of the best playmakers in the NFL, easily the best playmaker on the Carolina Panthers, and Christian McCaffrey was injured for nearly the entire season and a half that Joe Brady was there. And when CMC wasn't injured, we saw a lot of success from the Panthers. They were 3-0. He got injured in that Dallas game in the 4th game, and they lost that one. But with the playmakers there that they have, obviously DJ Moore as well, only DJ Moore was the healthy guy. And so you can't fully blame Joe Brady when you take the biggest piece out of his offense out of it. You give him average quarterbacks, to be fair. There isn't a lot that he was able to work with, and so to pull out what he did, for me, that was impressive. Let's go back and look what he did in college. Now, I don't want to dive too deep into this because I fully understand that there is a large gap between the college level and the NFL level. But we still want to note it and look into it a little bit because it was extremely impressive what he did at LSU as the passing game coordinator. He helped take Joe Burrow as a quarterback who threw 16 touchdown passes in the previous season to 60 touchdowns the very next season when LSU went undefeated and won a national championship. He was passing game coordinator for possibly the greatest college offense in the history of the game. Joe Burrow threw for 5,671 yards in that season, and Joe Brady won the Broyles Award for being the best assistant coach in college football, and that is no small task. When we look at other Broyles Award winners, Lincoln Riley, who is now the head coach at USC, has seen plenty of success at the college level. Kirby Smart, who is the head coach of the national champion Georgia Bulldogs, also won it. And Steve Sarkisian, who has now moved to Texas as their head coach. That's a pretty decent list to be a part of. Back to the NFL, because that's what matters. Joe Brady had not 1, not 2, but 3 interviews for NFL head coaching jobs. So the NFL obviously believes as a coach, he is more than capable. They showed that by giving him a chance to win a head coaching job, and there are only 32 of those. Joe Brady is just 32 years old. And so for him, there's not a lot of tread on the tire. He's got plenty of time left to learn, to grow, to get better and improve. And so you have to take that into consideration as well. Now let's look at what he is working with in Buffalo, because it is a major difference than what he had in Carolina. First and foremost, he's got Josh Allen, an MVP candidate who's going to possibly be and probably be an MVP candidate from here on out. The guy has been absolutely stellar the last 2 seasons. He is a rising star that shows no signs of stopping. And he's got a heavily upgraded skill set than anything that he's worked with in Teddy Bridgewater or Sam Darnold. Wide receiver wise, I love me some DJ Moore, but Stephon Diggs is a cut above. He's on another level, and he is one of the best receivers in the NFL. When you pair that with someone like Cole Beasley, who is excellent in the slot as a tactician and does his job better than most there, and then Gabriel Davis, who came on really strong the last 2 games for Buffalo. He had 5 touchdown receptions in the last 2 playoff games, 4 of them against the Chiefs. That is an awesome 3 wide receiver threat that he is going to be able to work with. At the running back position, you're never going to get anything like Christian McCaffrey, but you might get someone that's healthier. Devin Singletary had a very good end to the season. He had 4 games last season where he caught at least 5 passes, so he can be utilized in the passing attack as well. He showed that. Those offensive playmakers are going to make Joe Brady's job even easier. And then I think the biggest piece with all of that said is the offensive line that he now has. In Carolina, The Panthers last season, according to PFF, had the 31st ranked offensive line in the NFL, second worst in the league. So you have a below average to average quarterbacks. You have a horrid offensive line. You lose your top offensive playmaker. If you're Joe Brady, what the heck are you supposed to do? In Buffalo, he has the 17th ranked offensive line, right in the middle of the road. Very, very much improved, and that should help him and make his job a lot easier. Losing Brian Daboll for the Bills is obviously a hit. He had a great relationship with Josh Allen, but based on these facts, I do not expect a large drop-off from Joe Brady and this Buffalo Bills offense moving forward. I think that Joe Brady has an opportunity to expand on Josh Allen's game and continue that upward trajectory that we have seen. He clearly has an ability to elevate the passing game for his quarterbacks, and he showed an ability to elevate the running game for his quarterbacks as well, even for one Sam Darnold. So to answer my question, I think that the Buffalo Bills are going to be just fine on offense, and we might even see another level that we haven't seen from them in the past. I think we can expect an aerial attack that's going to be similar to what Brian Daboll brought to the table and was able to create in Buffalo, and I expect that continued success on the offensive side of the ball. And with that, we're going to wrap it up for today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed the content today. I hope you learned something. If you disagree with any of my takes, please drop that down below. I love the engagement. It is why I do these videos, so bring it on. This is Relentless Press. I'm your host, Abraham Opat, and we'll see you next time.